Welcome back. Now it's time to go over the election model. So this is the second installment of my 2024 presidential election forecast using a model I made. I'm just going to jump right in and not waste anyone's time. As of March 24th, 2024, my model predicts that as of right now, former President Donald Trump is in the lead with a 66.8% chance of getting 270 or more electoral votes. Meanwhile, the incumbent, President Joe Biden, has a 30.99% chance of winning the Electoral College. The remaining 2.21% is the probability of a 269 to 269 tie, which is definitely the nightmare scenario for everyone involved. In other words, if these polls hold up to November and there's no systemic polling error, then Trump wins 2 out of every 3 times and Biden wins 1 out of every 3 times. If you like sports betting, then Trump is like a minus 200 money line right now. Now, last time I mentioned that this forecast is based off of the state-level polls, along with some weights for time, sample size, poll population, and pollster accuracy. Despite this disclaimer, some people were still very upset in the comments, saying that the polls are inaccurate and I shouldn't even be using them. First of all, how else are you going to construct the model? Yes, it is very early in the election cycle. I agree with this. These forecasts will definitely shift a lot by November, but the results of the model are still telling you what the probability of each candidate winning is if the election were held today. That being said, it's not being held today, so there's a lot that can happen. But yeah, that's me defending my model. It's a much better indicator than the random people on Twitter and Reddit making predictions using the fantasy political lore they've created in their heads, so that's what I'll say. Anyway, okay, now that's out of the way, here's what the win probabilities are for the Battleground states in the 2024 election. I'm going to go in alphabetical order for each candidate. So Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Maine, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, and Wisconsin are either slightly, moderately, or heavily leaning in Trump's favor. Maine is probably an error, I think. Here you can look at the data set that I have. You can see what I'm working with. Maine was a pretty strong Biden state in 2020. There's only been 2 polls since 2023 in the state of Maine, and neither are by the best pollsters. So Biden was +1 according to digital research in early November, and Trump was +6 on Valentine's Day according to Pan Atlantic research. I would say these probably aren't going to end up being accurate. A lot of the big pollsters aren't focusing on Maine right now because they don't see it as a super competitive state. So I would put this on the Joe Biden side since it's super high variance with only 1 poll in 2024. The rest of the states have a solid number of polls, so this issue doesn't really exist for them. On Biden's side, he has Colorado, Maine's 1st congressional district, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia. If all of these were to hold until November, this is what the Electoral College map would look like. So Trump would have 312 electoral votes to Biden's 226. Now, for Biden to make up ground here, let's take a look at the states with the smallest Trump win probability. That way you can see which states Biden should have the easiest time winning to make up some ground here. You can see that Pennsylvania is the closest state with a 59.79% chance for Trump. Wisconsin comes in second at 63.25% for Trump, and Michigan is third with 66.49% for Trump. So these are the toss-up Rust Belt states. Trump won all 3 very narrowly in 2016, and Biden won all 3 very narrowly in 2020. They're going to be close. There's no question about that. Now, in 2020, funny enough, out of these 3 states, Michigan was the best state for Joe Biden. He won it by 2.78%. Right now, it's the worst of those 3 Rust Belt states for him. Now, if he can win those 3 states again, that nets him exactly 270 electoral votes. He's currently down in all 3. And even if he ends up winning 2 of them and losing, let's say, Michigan, for example, he would need to make up the Michigan votes through some combination of Nevada plus Arizona or winning Georgia or North Carolina or something, which he will be trying to win all those. He won most of those besides North Carolina in 2020, actually. But as you can see, according to the model, he has the best chance to win the 3 Rust Belt states and then lose everything else if he wants to. For Trump, he really needs to maintain the Rust Belt. It's just the negation of the Biden strategy. If he loses 2 of them, then he's going to have to win the majority of North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. And North Carolina, he only won by 1.34% in 2020. Arizona, he lost in 2020 by only around 4,000 votes or something. Georgia, he lost in 2020 by 0.23%. Nevada, he lost by 2.39%. So generally all pretty close, besides Nevada, which has shifted quite a lot since then. To close this video, I want to compare these results to the last time I made an election model video. It was about a month ago on the 26th of February. At the time, my model stated that Trump's win probability was around 71.44% compared to Biden's 26.49%. This is comparable, actually, to Nate Silver's 2016 forecast, where Clinton was given a 71.4% chance and still ended up losing. So about a month ago, Trump was in a similar position in the polls that Hillary Clinton was in right before the 2016 election. Now, of course, with Trump, it's still March, so there's still plenty of time to go. Plus, there was a polling error in 2016, and there was also a polling error in 2020. But in 2020, Biden was able to hold it off and still win the election by only around 40,000 or so votes. Both of those polling errors were overestimating the Democratic candidate, but we've seen that in recent midterm elections, the polls tend to overestimate Republicans instead. One explanation I've heard for this is that the MAGA voters, or Trump voters, are less likely to vote in midterm elections since they aren't really loyal to the Republican Party as they are to Trump himself. And then on the other side, Democrats have a more college-educated and suburban base, which are the demographics that are more likely to vote in non-presidential elections. So in essence, Democrats might have an advantage among more likely voters, whereas Republicans might have a difficult time getting voters to show up without Trump on the ballot. But at the same time, Trump also drives turnout among Democrats, so I don't know. I guess we'll just see what happens. But yeah, about a month ago, my model had Trump at 71.44%, and now he's at 66.8%. So these last 3 or 4 weeks have seen a shift towards Biden, but he's still not the favorite. There's still plenty of work for his campaign to do before they make up this difference in the polling. They do have a big fundraising advantage at the moment, so the ads are going to start heating up after they have their convention, and they're probably going to have ads about stuff like Trump's court cases, abortion, democracy, probably stuff that might be able to move some undecided voters, but we'll see if that happens at the time, and if it shows in the polling, then it'll show up in my model. But yeah, that's my 2024 presidential election forecast. The last thing I'll mention is that a lot of these polls have like 10+% of undecided voters who ultimately, funny enough, will end up deciding the election. Apparently undecided people really like deciding things, but yeah. So most of the shifts in this model and forecast will come from shifts among those undecided voters. But yeah, that's all I have for this week. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Yell at each other in the comments if you want to. I know you want to. And goodbye.